Hello, my name is Matt Elliott. Welcome to my MIT xPRO Capstone project. This is part one of my banking app presentation. In this video, we'll talk about architecture, front end, and authentication within my bank app. This bank app setup includes a client, which uses a React front end, a server, a node server featuring Express, and then a database, and that is MongoDB Atlas. And you can see here the general data flow requests go from the client to the server, from the server to the database, and then responses go from the database to the server, and then from the server to the client. Talk a little bit about the front end. What are some of the packages and libraries that I chose to use? So I used React, which is a JavaScript-based front-end framework. And that makes it really nice to create an app. It's declarative. So basically in my JavaScript, I can tell it what elements to render on the page. I used Bootstrap, which is a nice library that provides styled components. And for all the input forms, I used something called Formic, which is a form library. And it's really easy to use with React as well. And so on my Formic forms, those forms have inputs, and those inputs need to be validated. So I use something called Yup, which is a nice package that you can include in your node applications. So basically what that does is if you have a field that's supposed to be for an email, Yup will make sure that it actually is in the email format, or if you have passwords that need to be a certain length or include certain characters, Yup can make sure that that type of stuff happens. And then I also used React Bootstrap, which is basically just Bootstrap, but actually creates components ahead of time. So I can just use those React components in my React application. And I ended up building my own authentication for this app. So the way it works is the core functionality of the app is unavailable to authenticated users. So if a user wants to access the deposit or withdrawal or the all data pages, they're not available unless the user logs in. And so email and password are required to authenticate. And I built in functionality myself for registration and login. And React's use contact hooks stores the authenticated user details. And that enables the React components, such as the all data, the deposit, and the withdrawal components, to know that there's an authenticated user, and then it can enable that functionality for that user. So that's a little bit about the front end, some of the architecture, and the authentication that I built in. Thank you for watching.